Okay. So, welcome to Slate Auctions. Like, hi, perfect.
All right. We're clearly getting a feel for the stage.
I know, right?
Get up closer here, so can we read this? So today we're going to talk about auctions in Slate, running an auction. Often a thing that the fundraising group will do. Advancement I do is a fundraising auction. So we're going to talk today, kind of where did it come from? What are the key parts of the auction that we wanted to replicate or make sure that it showed up in Slate? What are the different Slate components that it was used? How is that experience for the users? What were the challenges? And then, now that we've gone through one build and this is great proof of concept, what would we do next? And hi, I'm Lloyd. So I work at Macalester College. I kind of grew up in advancement. I spent over 2 decades working in advancement. I'm now in IT, supporting Slate for Advancement and Hull Susted Success. We went live for advancement in 2020, a good year to do a conversion. And so I'm also very active in the Slate communities, Slate certified. I do also run some regional group activities for a Google Developer Group. It's such a thing. And then I swear your intro slide had some silly things on it. So I also included, the thing that's been bringing me joy lately is my youngest is in Scouting BSA now that they have girls. So I'm Assistant Scoutmaster in this girls troop, and it just fills my bucket. It's the best.
I have never done anything silly in my life.
Never, no.
I actually don't have anything. So hello, I'm Katie. I began working at Slate in 2014, which is wild. My background in education is I worked at 3 small liberal arts colleges. I did move to consulting in 2021. So you can find me as the Senior Director of Slate Strategies with the Parish group. As I said, background is admissions, like consulting has moved me to everything Slate. So, extraordinarily briefly about the Parish group, we've been in business for 38 years. We're a gold partner, reduced search engine instance, as well as many colorful icons. If you like what you see today, 0 sales pressure, but our booth has a really, really cool Slate giveaway. You get to roll these JavaScript dice. I'm a huge nerd, it's very fun. So come check us out. And with that, let's get into the build event. So I like to ask myself questions and like to answer them. So you'll see that a little bit as we go. So in terms of where this build came from, a year and a half ago, the phenomenal Bobby Martin was like, hello, I would like to build an auction in Slate. And I was like, ha 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 ha, no. She's very nice about it. A little while later, I was kind of just scrolling LinkedIn. I like to give credit where credit is due. And I saw College was hosting a virtual auction within not their Slate instance, but 4 services for their college. It's not that I'm extremely weird, but it is that then I woke up with the idea fully formed in my head for how to put this in Slate. With one just extraordinarily small hiccup, I'm not super experienced in auctions. So what is an auction? A great question, thank you for asking. I edited this slide after Lloyd approved them. He did not call himself the absolute champion.
Nice.
I snuck that in for you. But I'm delighted to call you a friend. I'm very excited to be here with you. We've chatted about Slate passion projects before, so I did something a little bold, which was email him the entire idea and say, hello, do you want to kind of check with this with me? And I really just like to think of what you're going to see next as the ultimate get inspired ghost. Do you want to pass this back and forth?
Sure.
Yeah.
So our key colors?
Exactly.
Great. So what's an auction? Katie said it, but let's build an auction at Slate. Well, that's great. Okay, first we have to define some things. What do you mean by auction? What are the most important parts of that? Should alumni donating things by email, or should they in the form to fill out that creates the auction item? Is this geared for an in-person event that would have a live aspect to it? Or is it really an online auction with kind of a deadline? What does the deadline mean? I'm sure some of you have been on some online auctions where as it gets close to the end, if somebody bids, does that extend the end time by a couple minutes to try and keep garnering interest? Should be getting more complicated, or is there a hard cutoff time for the final bid? Kind of the race to the last few seconds, like an eBay style. How do you define your bidding increments? Could it just be any amount? Could somebody bid a penny more and then they're winning? And then that live auction aspect, does it need to update the amount in real time on, say, an auction page, on the items page? And of course, the real kind of rubber hitting the road, how does the hosting institution collect the money once the auction has been completed? So let's talk about some of the build components. The basics of this are that there's a parent data set for an auction event and a child data set, which are the auction items. As you're creating your data set, you can do parent-child. It allows for, as far as I can tell, one neat thing where it'll show a breadcrumb in the upper part of your data set profile. Other than that, I'm not really convinced. But anyway, no, it's great. It's great. Parent-child data sets are the best. And then, so as you're building it out, like having the embedded dataset query, so the field type is dataset query, so it shows the items on, say, the auction event. What are the items? Click through into those. And then having the portal, so we've got our auction portal, modifying the base portal from clean slate, and then the entity which tracks the build. So one of the things that I thought was great about this was it's relatively few custom fields. So here's the extent of the custom fields that we needed to create the different items across the multiple data sets and entities that are there. So let's hear what the user experience is like.
So for our backend users, we are just going to first start with looking at our record lookup page. So customized this a little bit. So you can see our item names, their general IDs, all of this good stuff. So the major gift officers have a couple different options here. Something we'll chat about is that they're all donated through a form. So probably easiest to just set up an internal notification email for when a new item comes in. But these items are going to become very familiar to you as we are going to be using them a lot in the next half hour. When an item does come in, you can see now a look at a custom tab on our child dataset for the items. So there's the options for the fields completed by donor, but you can also see the options for their major gift officers. So we are looking for them to put in a starting bid, a current bid amount that with our current structure is $10 less, and we also need them to set yes or no if the item is available for the auction. So that is going to really control some of our portal display later on. So there is a little bit of a vetting process between when an item is donated and when it shows up on the auction site. The donors will also have the ability to include a custom image with their submission. So the gift officers should be uploading that within the content block and making sure that the content block name matches the item name. But we did also go ahead and put a default image on there as well. And the donor experience.
All right. So for the donor, one of the things that we've assumed is that if you're going to be doing any bidding or donating an item, that you're logged into the product. So we're going to do some hand waving because in advancement we've already solved the logging into the alumni portal and say that somebody's already created their account, they're able to log in and say that they're going to donate to the auction. I'm sorry there. This is pro level presentation. Anyway, no, this is super helpful. All right, anyway, so for the donor experience, when they go to their form, they're filling out information. We've got some grayed out items on the form here that would be hidden in production. This is the way to show what are the key fields that we need to capture for the item. So the item is created when they're logged in. They already know what event they're donated to, so we could pass that auction event grid into the form So that's captured on the event when it's or the item when it's created. And then the name, so the donor can add their name, or they can customize how it looks, or even mark themselves anonymous if they would prefer that to be the case. So the bidding experience, Hank, is
I'm very excited about this.
It's really good.
I know. I was joking that I will now pause in presenting. We'll just stare at this in awe and silence for a minute. But a couple of things that we can see here. So we have, as Lentz said, modified the Slate portal to include all of these new tabs. So one of the things that the donor can fill in is a general category for a type that they are donating. And so those are those secondary key buttons that we can see here. So they are searchable within that, but there's also the overall search option. You can see that 2 of our items here have the standard image album. You can also see that the third one has a custom image. All of these are stock images that I just used. But you'll see the item name and some of the name custom logic. So we're currently logged in as me. And so we can see that the first item has a bid on it that I have nothing to do with. We can see that for the second item, I'm really trying to win this. However, I am not currently winning. And the third item simply has no bid yet. Each one also has 2 buttons that we're going to be looking at a little bit more as well though. So on the other hand, if you are Christopher and you are wildly bidding against me, which is weird, he is winning for these 2 items. So just to show you a little bit of the dynamic content that we have going on there. So the first button is a extremely glamorous pop-up tab, just designed to show a little bit more of the information about the items that are potentially being bid on. So we were chatting about we'll chat a lot about things we can add to this because we had a great deal of fun. So a really nice thing could be to have the view details button available ahead of time so you can kind of browse around, like what you want to bid on, and then when the auction opens, you already know who you're bidding for. So as I said, this is one of the places where we talked a lot about different things to add. So one potential for this tab is to include additional information about any blackout dates, expirations, specific instructions for redeeming, all of that stuff that could be collected on the initial donating form. And if you click instead the second button, we're going to go through a couple different options here, but this is what it's going to look like if you are the first person bidding on an item. In this case, it is a $100 Costa gift card. I did do the math out. It is 66 hot dogs at the food court. So that is going to be a little bit prevalent throughout. And if you are the first bidder, there is no history. On the other hand, these hotly contested hugs, I keep gesturing if you don't know everything about Lloyd, he's also a phenomenal potter on the side. The pinnacle of artistry, as we can see. So we can see the history of the bidding. And then when we're still aggressively bidding on these, we can see a longer history. This is also a little bit of a, as you can see, later version of this form. We added the image to the top that you can just sort of see as well. And this is the third tab of our portal, so I can see every bid that I have made, but I can also see the details of what I'm specifically currently winning on. So I also have a little bit of the total, so I can keep track of what I'm planning to, commit to spending. And the highest auctions, they are also links if you're like, what I really want to do is give you more money for this item. And this is the back end of the entity that would display on the child dataset page. So we are able to see that I spend a lot of time impersonating Chris Kwan. So he and I were, it was me both times, bidding back and forth furiously.
All right. So it's great. We've got our active auction happening, the hotly contested buttery mugs or 66 hot dogs, depending on what it is we're really after. So from the administrative side, what does that need to be? How would we set that up? How would we track that? How would we correctly account for that and try to collect the money? So the way we set that up, I think that made the most sense, is that each item would then be a pledge. So if you're the winning bidder on an auction item, you got a pledge in the system. Now, there's no magic way to make a pledge just be created. So we would, again, a little bit of hand waving, at the end of an auction, there would be a process to download all the items, who the winners are, then those could be uploaded via an upload data set to create a pledge on that person's record for the item. The key thing that to link everything together is that we created a custom field. When you download the slides, you can see we created a custom field of a gifts table that links, it's a related data set record, links it to the item, to the auction item. So that shows up, that's what the pledge is for. From that, then you've got the amount of that's the winning bid, that's the pledge, and links to the person. So now it's a pledge. We know what to do with pledges, right? You can schedule your pledge reminders. You can send. You could even craft a separate outreach mailing if you like. That if there's people who've won multiple different items, maybe you send them one email of the notification of winning their pledge. But it is often cleaner if you could do one, then that link can go directly to pay off that individual pledge amount. So big shiny button. Click that and collect the payment. So then on the gifts side, so this is a screenshot of the gifts pop-up on the gift tab. The item, for tax purposes, it has a known fair market value. That fair market value is part of what was collected or set up administratively when the auction rate was created. So that fair market value is known. Then the charitable giving amount is the difference between the fair market value and the total bid amount. This is how we often do this. And then having it linked as well from the pledge, the custom field, you scope that to pledge and gift so that it shows up and it's all linked and makes reporting much cleaner, makes follow-up much cleaner, and general outreach and maintaining with your constituents that much easier.
Was this hard? What are the challenges?
What were the challenges? There was, it was fun. I think that partly it was just deciding how is it that we want to track these things. And there was one aha moment, which we get to give credit to Stephen, who's in the audience here, for figuring out the key thing. We'll keep them waiting.
I know, anticipation.
That's right. So the concept and build, it worked in a really great way. I really appreciated working with Katie on this, like kind of starting with what is the core things that we want to define, and then starting to build on that, getting the base kind of proof of concept working, and then building out from there. The live component, how does that work? So that was a little bit challenging. We kept saying, what if two people click on the details of an item when it's at $100 and they enter in the next bid amount of $110? What in Slate is going to stop them from both hitting submit? Because when they open the form, they are bidding above the amount that it was. So updating the traditional alumni portal to show the different items was pretty fun. Make sure all the pieces could be linked back to the record. If we get to probably we talked about it, but it doesn't matter to mention again. I think one of the big realizations was also figuring out to add when you're bidding on an item, the system knows your record ID, and so to put that person record WID as the winning person for that item. Because if you have the winning bid and you could put that WID, the person's WID on there, and it made things easier across the board. So then once we started to solve these things, we got to add to it and lots of fun details.
All right. So the first one that we're going to dive into a little bit more is how do we get it to work live? So step one, how do we make sure that an appropriate bid is being suggested? Because in our early phases of testing, we started where all items had an opening bid of $30. Unfortunately, you did not bid very aggressively, and I won a Corvette for $80, which is very exciting for me, but probably not great for the institution. And something like I said a while ago is, what if people are doing penny increases? And honestly, we didn't want that. So we wanted to make sure that our bids were being rated appropriately. So, spoiler, this is the final formula. So this gets placed in the form, I'll show you in a second, but really it's just saying if this is the first bid, then use the starting amount. If there is a bid that exists, then add $10, which you've probably saw everything that's just increasing in that increment this whole time. So this is the first look into the back end of our bidding form. So you can just see that the formula gets, spoiler, placed right where it says formula. You can also see some of our work in progress here with our inactivated field. Just trying some different things, and I think that's an authentic part of the experience. This is the magic part.
The magic part. So, news to me, if you add a rule to a form, you can, in very few places in Slate can you add a rule. Used to adding rules on a person record or a data set, and then the update that's going to happen on the record kind of gets put in a stream of things that might happen. Well, it'll happen soon, right? So, ideally, rule of thumb, I figure about 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so. But if you create a rule that's attached to a form, that rule fires right away. So, Stephen, let us know. Stephen Nichols here, being very quiet, but what a great Slate guru, person to have as a resource, explain that's how that works. So you could then add that as a rule, and in conjunction with the conditional logic of the form, that's kind of where the magic happens. So if the rule is that the new amount of the item is set from the field with the value of the item, then it solves all of our concerns about double bidding of same amounts. So there's our conditional logic error message that it needs to be greater than the current bidding amount. And so if you refresh the page, it would then show that it had gone up, and they need to increase their bid. So then this live component this is the conditional logic, right? The query, subquery kind of build of the conditional logic, and I clicked right by it. So
There was.
there goes. It worked great.
It was great. So, one thing we did then run into was that if you were trying to place the opening bid, you would also get slapped with that error message, and I think this is the hardest part. So what we did was cheat, and we made a new field simply called opening bid that we saw referenced a little bit earlier. So that's where the major gift officer has a large amount of control in determining where the auction will be starting. And this is also what really helped us to say, okay, this is a higher ticket item, we're going to start at a higher value. This is a lower ticket item, we're going to simply start at a lower value. And having that one field in place stopped all of the inappropriate error messages, which was very exciting.
All right. So, since this is a new build, right, we could make it look like and feel like whatever we wanted. Starting with the portal to display is always intimidating to think of. I always like to say it's, I wish I knew my colleague who mentioned this years ago, it's always nicer to edit a paragraph than to start from a blank sheet of paper. Right, so starting with the clean slate version of the alumni portal was a nice kind of paragraph to start with. Let me start to modify that and make that work for our use. The item type was another thing that was added. Like, how do you categorize the items, and what's the best way to make that? Is it a prompt? Is it free text? So that was an item, an area that was a nice improvement as it started to roll out. And so here's a screenshot of a little bit of the specifics of the item display. And so we got our liquid conditional logic showing whether or not you are winning or not, whether nobody's bid yet. So that's the magic happening there. And then this is the 3 levels deep of the winner. This is how you calculate whether you are the current winner. who might be viewing the item.
It is hard to fully convey, I think, how many independent subqueries went into this build, but the volume of if squid equals squid. Let's...
Oof. So here is the first look into that one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so that was for the item display page. For the my bidding display page, it's similar, but we are going to be looking at a person-based query rather than the item-based query. So very, very similar. We have a little bit of a lip going on to show what we are waiting for. And unfortunately, if you we, it's nothing. So, as I said, a little bit of a different query approach. So this one did not need to be independent, which is, I think, the only time we get to say that. But this is just showing a little bit of what we use to pull the winning items. So the GUID is like just to connect it back if you wanted to, again, click in and keep giving money or nothing is slap you. And I do want to say that the back end of the bidding form has a lot of hidden fields. So we are not daisy-chaining anything, very cautious about that. But there is a lot of, so we know who this person is, they're logged into the portal, they're the ones clicking. The query string parameters are tying the person's GUID to a bunch of different fields. So on the left, we can see, where we started, which is what it looks like if you are clicking into an item. This is what it looks like if I unhide every field. I think it's fair to acknowledge, I'm not certain all of these are necessary, but we did hit a point in building where I was like, my gosh, it works, don't touch it, don't breathe near it. And so here is what that looks like. So the hidden fields let us know who is bidding, who is winning, and then spoiler, it's an independent dictionary in order to display on our person records. So this is just our classic details tab. So we're keeping track of not only what bids I have made, but what items I have donated over time. And as promised, a second independent subquery in order to pull our display on our tab. So this is on the person base for our person details. And then I am going to, good news again, as promised, the GUID is equal to the GUID. And let's chat a little bit about things we would do differently.
Yeah.
Did we need a parent-child data set? We're going to go a little bit more into each of these, but what would the donating process look like for a digital item versus a physical item? And the way we opted to build it was having everything utilize the same form and query string parameters to have different experiences for different items. Do we want one form or do we want to make a form per item?
Yeah, so the question, do we need to have a parent-child data set? I'm becoming, as I'm getting more familiar with Slate, and of course it changes all the time, I'm getting more comfortable and appreciative of having more data sets. I did check at Macalester, our admissions instance has about 10 data sets. Our advancement advancement instance has about 20. Or so, because I made a hard rule when we were live, is we're not going to flood our database with custom data sets, because I'm not sure where the advantages are. Now that we've been rolling out student success, we're about a year in, and there's 46 data sets.
You should have let us guess.
I should have. Because I'm a fan of this. So I will hold to, I think, that having the parent-child data set, although, yeah, except that it always trips me up, setting up that form to make sure it captures the parent correctly, that always throws me off. Aside from that, it's pretty slick.
It is. So Lloyd set up the parent-child data set, and I was like, well, it should just be a file data set. So that, some of the things that we're talking about really are debates that we had. Digital versus physical wasn't us debating so much as just thinking about different processes and what different schools would want. If someone is donating a whatever car I said, how do we get the car to the person? It's a process. I don't have that answer. So as I said, 8 years ago we started talking. This was initially inspired by an auction that I saw post from my college, and they were simply doing bids based on the campus experiences So the $100 campus tour that many people mocked me, it's just a little bit of an homage to that one. And so that was things like, come for a campus tour with a student, enjoy a class with a professor, things that weren't really tangible. So thinking through what that process would look like. And this one that is just, I think we have different opinions.
Right? Oh yeah, this one. The one form. So the question is, do we make one form, one Slate form that is able to collect bids for all the different items? The complexity of showing the specifics of that item isn't so bad because you can pass the GUID of the item in because it's a dataset scope form. They can be aware of itself, so then you could start to have the form show things. It's not too bad, but there's some you have to come up with a template that you want to use for all of the forms. I'm admittedly lazy, so I would like to set it up once and have it work for any future thing that might work. But Katie makes it in case, I would say.
Well, I think there is something to say, and part of it is, of course, thinking about your pool size, so you know how many items would be donated. I think there is a case for having a form per item. The con is that you have many forms, but the pro is that you gain some dynamic capability in terms of having not just the flat $10 invoice per item. So do you want to build a million forms? You have the flexibility. Do you want one form that works really well but is setting?
Customize the image. The image might not be the same ratio for different ones, right? You can have a longer description. Maybe it needs more descriptions. It's also nice to go to the form. If you look at the form, that shows on the form by default the history, the bidding history on it, right?
Probably was GUID equals GUID.
I mean, we all like it. GUID equals GUID.
I mean,
right.
This is a very real look at what the building looks like.
Yes.
Okay. Things to add in the future, because it is hard to, we had a lot of fun. There's a lot that could be added to this. Do you want to go for it?
Sure. Right, so we built in this build a lot as a proof of concept. Are we first able to do it? Does it kind of fit the spirit of what it is we would need? And then in a lot of ways, the necessities as far as gift accounting and tracking that. So we can certainly do that. Obviously, if we were to roll this out, we want to have more reports, a nicer dashboard probably for the auction event itself. You could imagine nice things that would be nice to have on that. So those are things that would be nice.
The pop-up could be even prettier.
I thought the pop-up was great. You're pretty self-critical, I think, of the pop-up. I thought it worked really well. And then, thinking about improved communication. So from the bidding experience, what would that look like? Would you want, how hotly do you want to have a bidded item in there? With the beauty of Slate, you could even text somebody if they've been outbid. You could send them an email if they've been outbid. And then the email of when they've won or when the auction event is over as well, to be a text or an email. Or there's lots of ways, I think, to help make that a nice bidding experience.
I'm thinking of the spoiler, but we actually have 3 slides of things we could add because we have a lot of ideas. So one thing we talked about was minimum winning bid to make sure that something didn't go for too far below the value. Do we take the donor's spots and do we count with that? Should we just start with it in there? There's a balanced everything. Something that would be very, very easy to add would be have the bid now button only available when the auction is live, because we were stuckly building this, it was always available. If the alumni wanted to donate multiple of an item, we would not want to make them fill out the form over and over. But rather we want to say how many of these will be donated, and then building on an export and re-import process with Slate in order to make multiple of the items show up. We also had this really geared towards, again, alumni donating items. We did not really take into account if corporations were donating any thinking rebating as well.
Wait, so then they're going on.
The party has started.
It certainly sounds like it. On the donation page, flushing out a little bit of what that experience is like when you're adding a donatable item or donating an item, as far as, is it anonymous? If it were a corporation, would there be an extra bits of advertising you might want to have? Are there links, relevant links? So that, adding more kind of details or elements that we might want to collect on that donating an item.
And with those, 800 word equals Wickfields. This is us. So if you scan these are our LinkedIn's, this is our contact info. I know that Tech Solutions will make our slides live. This does also go to our slides in case you want and need them immediately to go studying tonight. Please have at it. This does go to an RFI that goes really straight to me, sorry. So any questions, of course, feel free to ask Matt. We also realize we're standing between you and cocktails, which is a tough position to be in. So we want to make sure that you can really always reach out to us. So I've had this up for a second. Actually, I had to click back to our info for a second, just for fun of it. And we're also both pretty findable around Cemetery in our couple days.
Absolutely.
Woo.